Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so looking forward to today's guest because she's going to be talking to us about being a consultant. And there are so many people who think, ooh, that sounds like that's something for me. Or they think, oh my gosh, it's too hard. I could never do that. But it is such a great way for you to make a living and be helping others and have an awful lot of fun. So please join me in welcoming Amy Rasdal to our program today. Welcome, Amy. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So
Great.
Amy Rasdal traded her corporate job for consulting 15 years ago, and she makes more money now than most executives. The advantages are freedom, flexibility, control, interesting work, and excellent pay. She has been running her own multiple six-figure consulting business for more than 15 years. As the founder of, and I love this name, Billable at the Beach, Amy has helped hundreds of people start their own successful consulting businesses through speaking, workshops, and various programs over the past 10 years. Billable at the Beach liberates six-figure earners by empowering them to build six-figure consulting businesses. So again, Amy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to dive in today.
Great, great. Well, as I mentioned, you have quite the career. So tell us, and background. So tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I'll start at the way back, but I'll make it a quick transition.
Okay.
I am a Silicon kid.
Okay.
So my dad was an early Silicon Valley semiconductor guy.
Okay.
So I grew up in that environment, and I sat around just the average dinner tables of people who were like doing all those Silicon Valley things. So when my parents moved us there from the LA area, when we first got to Silicon Valley, it was full of fruit orchards.
Right.
And we thought at the time, coming from LA, what kind of farming
Yikes.
community has our parents moved us to? And what are we doing out here in the boonies? And my dad, way in his way back, had been an actual wheat farmer in Nebraska before he went technical. So we thought, oh no, he's going back to farming. But I grew up in that. So I really thought that what everybody did, because the environment that I was in, everyone did technology and everybody started companies. So it didn't really occur to me that people did other things rather than those two things. So I set about building my career in the early days in education. My goal was to be a startup CEO.
Okay.
So I started out, I actually made a few detours because I have undergraduate degrees in computer science, but also music and French. I went to undergrad on a music scholarship, which is an interesting side note. There is that, some of us know, that kind of math music connection.
Right. There is
that comes
definitely a
into
connection.
play. So I think that was the tie-in there. I worked for a few years as a software engineer for a Silicon Valley company. And then I went to business school. That was always kind of my plan. And then out of business school, I set about sort of building all of my cross-functional rotations. Since I had been a product development engineer, I went into marketing first to kind of see the other side, the dark, right?
The
Marketing
dark
and
side,
product
yes.
development both sort of consider each other the dark side. And it was really funny too, because we used to sit around in R&D meetings saying, those darn marketing people, if they just understood. And I was about 2 weeks into marketing, and I'm sitting in a meeting and they're saying, those darn engineers, if they just, so it was really funny.
You're like,
But
oh.
But a good one of the strengths of my career, and also a little bit different being a woman who had been a technical person,
Right. Hmm.
was really being able to build that bridge
Hmm.
between marketing and
Hmm.
R&D. So
Hmm.
that has ended up being kind of a
Hmm.
recurring strength throughout my career. So I set about first working with big
Hmm.
corporations. My first job out of business school was a subsidiary of Eli Lilly,
Okay.
big pharma company doing medical devices. Um, and I was fresh out of business school. They had a program where, as long as you were performing, you could pick a different cross-functional area rotation. They were kind
Mm-hmm.
of grooming general managers.
Okay.
So I don't think those programs exist as much as they used to.
Hmm.
I don't think companies have a shorter term mindset these days,
Hmm.
so they don't invest
Right.
in a 15 or 20-year
Hmm.
time horizon
Hmm.
building their managers like they used
Right.
to.
And most people don't stay there that long.
Yes. So I think that's kind of a mistake,
Hmm.
honestly.
Right. Hmm.
But it was great experience for me. And then since I wanted to eventually do startups, I jumped off and started doing startup
Hmm.
companies. I did venture funded.
Hmm.
I was third employee. I did one that was bootstrapped.
Mm.
So startups are volatile, they're
Hmm.
exciting, they're fast paced, they can shoot up like a rocket and then crash
Poof.
and burn. And it's
Hmm.
exciting, and you
Hmm.
feel like you have. I had the last one where I was an official employee
Hmm.
was about 18 months long.
Hmm.
It felt like 5 years worth of experience. We
Hmm.
shot up way into the
Hmm.
stratosphere.
Hmm.
I could walk into a meeting. Now, I'm not the world's best salesperson. I could walk into a meeting
Hmm.
and come out with a check for $2 or $3 million after a
Whoa.
half-hour meeting. It
Hmm.
was crazy.
Hmm.
But then the bubble burst and it crashed and burned, and I learned a lot about that too.
Hmm.
But I found myself liberated.
Hmm.
Now, I effectively laid myself off because
Hmm.
I knew that we didn't have enough money to pay me
Hmm.
anymore.
Hmm.
I have never been a person that thought anybody on should work for free.
Hmm.
If you want to volunteer,
Right.
then it
That's
should be
different.
a
Hmm.
nonprofit
Hmm. Right.
organization.
Hmm.
You don't volunteer for for-profit
Hmm.
organizations. So
Right.
there are people who do it, and
Hmm.
it always really, really concerns me.
Hmm.
But I was liberated. It wasn't a surprise because I
Hmm.
basically laid myself
Hmm.
off. So I was looking for the next thing. At
Hmm.
that point, I was looking for vice president of operations.
Okay.
In that role that crashed and burned, I was vice president of operations and engineering.
Hmm.
So operations, I'm not a manufacturing
Hmm.
person. This is more like software
Hmm.
operations where
Right.
it's getting all the stuff done,
Hmm.
but not a manufacturing
Hmm.
facility.
Right.
That's
Not
not
the
my
nuts
strength.
and bolts and
Yeah, that's
hmm.
just at the end of the day, what I'm really good at. I'm a very practical person.
Hmm.
I'm really, really good at getting things done.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the other folks are the visionaries.
Hmm.
They set the high level
Hmm.
strategies. I do the implementation and
Hmm.
execution.
Hmm.
So I've really built my career and then on as a consultant, partnering with the visionary,
Hmm.
brilliant person who, and many of us know these people,
Hmm.
isn't good at actually doing things.
Right. They've
They
got
don't
that
have
pie in the sky type of, but they have no idea how to manage people and manage money and
exactly.
hmm.
They don't have a list,
Hmm.
right? I have 20 million lists,
Hmm.
not 20
Hmm.
million, but I have a
Right.
handful of lists for each
Hmm.
thing. They're
Hmm.
prioritized. It's pink for
Hmm.
I'm just like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
I have a grocery list template.
Right. Hmm.
It's so obnoxious,
Hmm.
right? That's just
Hmm.
how I am.
Right.
And it has little categories
Hmm.
organized at
Hmm.
how you walk
Hmm.
around Costco.
Oh, I love it.
So you don't get to the check stand and
Hmm.
think, oh, I forgot
Or
that thing
worse,
that's in the back
home.
corner or home, right? So I'm
Hmm.
obnoxious that way. Be
Hmm.
glad all of you listeners out there, be glad you're not married to me and feel sad for my husband.
Oh, but he's very glad because you are so detail oriented, I'm sure.
Well, sometimes.
Yeah, I'm married. I'm married to one of those real detail oriented people. And yeah, there are times where I'm like, really?
Yeah, I know.
Mhm.
It can drive you
Mhm.
crazy.
Mhm.
But I'm really good at getting things done.
Mhm.
So I, at that point, was liberated.
Mhm.
I'm looking for my next position,
Mhm.
and I'm at an executive level now.
Mhm.
I have come to the realization at a certain level of wisdom that the people that you work with are probably more important than what the mission of the company
Mm-hmm.
is. And
Mm-hmm.
you want it to be a successful company and a good
Right.
product and have funding and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. But the team that you work with is really, really
Mm-hmm.
important. And I had made a couple of bad choices, back in
Mm-hmm.
my career and
Mm-hmm.
had a couple of toxic
Mm-hmm.
relationships. I wanted to do my best to prevent that. So I was
Mm-hmm.
taking my time.
Mm-hmm.
Consulting project fell into my lap, 20 hours a week for 3 months. And I
Oh.
thought, okay, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I can make enough money to pay
Mm-hmm.
my bills while I'm really carefully
Mm-hmm.
looking. Deb, I got 4 or 5 weeks into that and I
Mm-hmm.
said, cancel the job search.
Yeah,
This is the
doing this,
life.
ding ding.
I'm now a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never looked back.
I love that.
But I also have made every mistake
Mm-hmm.
that is
Mm-hmm.
possible to
Mm-hmm.
make. And I've made some of them more than once.
Right.
And so many of them are not intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I help other people
Mm-hmm.
do it, I see the pitfalls
Mm-hmm.
and people always head for them
Mm-hmm.
and I'm able to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
So really how Billable at the Beach came about is I was doing this consulting.
Mm-hmm.
Deb talked about freedom, flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
career, great career. And I think the important things to point out is a lot of people think, oh, well, this is like it's a lifestyle business
Mm-hmm.
or it's a compromise
Mm-hmm.
or it's a cop out.
Mm-hmm.
I spent years building my
Mm-hmm.
career. I have 4 college degrees. I was very serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't about to give up on my career.
Right.
So this is not a cop out.
No,
I
no,
make
and it's
I
not
f-
because you can't do anything else. That's what you hear a
that's
lot of,
so
right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's a good point.
Right.
I make more money
Mm-hmm.
than I made as a corporate
Mm-hmm.
executive. I have control and I
Mm-hmm.
have more impact
Mm-hmm.
on my clients because when they hire you at a good rate to come in and give
Mm-hmm.
them advice, they're very likely to listen to what you say.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I remember telling my dad in the early years, we've all been there around the table saying, look, I've been telling you this, I've been
Mm-hmm.
telling you this,
Mm-hmm.
you guys aren't listening, you won't do it. I walk in there as a consultant, I tell my dad, I said, Dad, I have to be careful what I tell them because now they do it.
Right.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
little scary, but it's so satisfying. So you don't have to give up the amount of money you make.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to give up the career or
Mm-hmm.
your career trajectory that you've
Mm-hmm.
spent so long
Right.
building.
Mm-hmm.
And so my whole approach to consulting is not fractional,
Mm-hmm.
superhero, superpower, super pay.
Ooh, I love that.
You go in there,
Mm-hmm.
you do a project,
Mm-hmm.
you do a big hit, you
Mm-hmm.
make an impact, you
Right.
charge a good rate
Mm-hmm.
because you're adding so
Mm-hmm.
much value,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and then you move on
Mm-hmm.
to the next client, the
Mm-hmm.
next project.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you come back to that
Mm-hmm.
client when they
Right.
need you again, maybe you
Mm-hmm.
never do. But it's not about fractional, part-time, filling
Mm-hmm.
your hours.
Right.
I really want to, I mean, who doesn't want to be a superhero,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Superhero,
Mm-hmm.
superpower, super pay.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is, as I went about doing that, I would have more and more colleagues and friends saying, Amy, I've been watching you, like you're making good
Mm-hmm.
money. I live right next to Mission Bay. I see you water skiing every Friday morning. I see you taking all these dance
Mm-hmm.
classes. Like, I know that you're still
Mm-hmm.
working hard, but you're
Mm-hmm.
having life. Now
Right.
you have kids. I see you
Mm-hmm.
going on the field trips.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is going
Mm-hmm.
on here and how do I do it?
Mm-hmm.
So I've told you that I'm so diligent
Mm-hmm.
and kind of process
Mm-hmm.
oriented. So I would meet with them. They'd say, can we have lunch? And I would say,
Mm-hmm.
sure. And I would think, okay, what do I love? What do I hate?
Mm-hmm.
What do I wish I would have known?
Mm-hmm.
What would I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
And I started to accumulate a body of material.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that I was accumulating a body of material. I had the market demand saying, we need this
Mm-hmm.
information. So
Right.
that's when I founded Billable at the Beach,
Mm-hmm.
which is a program that helps mostly corporate types
Mm-hmm.
jump off and build their own consulting
Mm-hmm.
business.
Right.
So an important point to make about that is you are still going to be working with corporate
Mm-hmm.
clients.
Because that's where the money is.
That exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the
Mm-hmm.
money is. So
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes talk to people. I had a conversation with one woman and she had come from a situation which I'm sure a lot of us can relate to
Mm-hmm.
that had become very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly that happens in the corporate
Mm-hmm.
world these days.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel like you've sold your soul and they
Mm-hmm.
really own you. They've got your
Right.
whole paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
they've got your
Mm-hmm.
promotions, they've
Mm-hmm.
got your title, your
Mm-hmm.
health, all of that is
Mm-hmm.
them. So you really feel beholden to
Mm-hmm.
them. When you go out and you don't have that, she said, I don't want to do any corporate stuff anymore. I met this woman in my community who owns a hair salon.
Hmm.
And I said, well, okay, but
Mm-hmm.
you're looking to replace a six-figure income.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this hair salon's total revenue for the year is $200,000,
Right.
which is great for a hair
Mm-hmm.
salon.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think she can afford to pay
Mm-hmm.
you?
Right. And she
Not
went,
an,
oh.
not enough to get to six
Mm-hmm.
figures.
Mm-hmm.
So you're exactly
Mm-hmm.
right. And so the corporate is where the
Mm-hmm.
money is. And people hire consultants because they need someone who can come
Mm-hmm.
in, hit the ground running,
Right.
make an impact right
Mm-hmm.
away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be doing corporate consulting, you're going to be doing what you've been doing
Mm-hmm.
all these years, what you
Right.
built your
Mm-hmm.
education and your
Mm-hmm.
career. Now, some of us can do multiple things. You
Mm-hmm.
might pick a particular focus,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very good to be
Mm-hmm.
focused. But if you're looking to be doing something dramatically different,
Mm-hmm.
it's consulting is not for you. And through the course of Billable at the Beach, I do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
speaking, and I spoke the second Monday of every month for 12 years at a company called Lee Hecht Harrison,
Mm-hmm.
which is outplacement services.
Okay.
So some
Mm-hmm.
of our listeners
Mm-hmm.
may
Mm-hmm.
know them. If you work
Mm-hmm.
for a corporation big enough and have a high enough
Mm-hmm.
title, you often will get outplacement
Right.
services when you're let
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I would speak on the same kind of docket
Mm-hmm.
as a franchise
Mm-hmm.
broker,
Right. Mm-hmm.
because those are two
Mm-hmm.
options of
Mm-hmm.
self-employment. So I would say if you want to do something completely
Mm-hmm.
different, then you should probably talk to Roxanne,
Mm-hmm.
because what I do, it's going to feel completely
Mm-hmm.
different. Freedom, flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
you work where you want, when
Mm-hmm.
you want, from the beach, from a mountaintop, whatever it might
Mm-hmm.
be. But it's really taking advantage of the value that you've
Mm-hmm.
built
Right.
for
That
yourself by what you've
knowledge
been
base
doing.
that you have.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Superhero, superpower, super pay,
Mm-hmm.
really selling your
Mm-hmm.
superpower. So then, at first, it was just a one-on-one program that was
Mm-hmm.
offline. And then I discovered this wonderful world of online programs and
Mm-hmm.
podcasts. And I know that, Deb, that your reach is global,
Mm-hmm.
global reach.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the first time I had someone from Kenya in one of my
Mm-hmm.
programs. I thought, oh my gosh,
Right.
how
Mm-hmm.
cool is this?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was a woman who was whatever the Kenyan equivalent of a CPA is.
Okay.
So for all of the other foreign
Mm-hmm.
people, I'm sorry to be so American centric on what and a
Mm-hmm.
certified accountant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, she'd had a second baby, and
Mm-hmm.
just like many of us, she
Mm-hmm.
struggled with, well, paying daycare for two
Mm-hmm.
kids and going to the office,
Right.
and what are the other
Mm-hmm.
options? Is there some
Mm-hmm.
flexibility? So she was starting to do it on her own as a
Mm-hmm.
consultant
Mm-hmm.
and joined my program.
Mm-hmm.
So it really has grown up.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've found this online world which
Mm-hmm.
allows us to have a global reach and
Right.
to impact
Mm-hmm.
more people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm passionate about helping people understand that they can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone
Right.
really can do
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Right. And as you were saying, this is such a benefit to companies because they need a project done. They don't want to hire an employee. They need, and that's how I started my business. It's a marketing consulting firm. They need a website. They need branding. They need, and so it's a short term type of thing. Now, as you said, it could lead to more, all those other things, but they don't need an employee to do it, or they don't have the right employees to do it. And so they need somebody to come in and say, okay, we're going to do X. And that's all we're going to do for you. And then, like you said, you go merrily on your way.
Yes, absolutely. And I talk about one of the hardest things about building your own consulting
Mm-hmm.
business, and it's true of any
Mm-hmm.
business, is it's not doing the work.
Right.
For from this is the work that we've
Mm-hmm.
been doing
Mm-hmm.
all these years, and I'm
Right.
sure it's the same with you
Yeah.
and your business.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of the easy part.
Mm-hmm.
It's the outreach.
Mm-hmm.
It's keeping the pipeline full of high
Mm-hmm.
quality projects.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, I even have guys in my program who are like, I call them sales animals.
Mm-hmm.
They are just these guys. I hate to use the word guys because there's killer women who do it
Mm-hmm. Of
too.
course. Mm-hmm.
And the men, honestly, they'll tell you the biggest thing they fear in their territory is a woman who's a really, really
Ah,
good
ooh, I
salesperson,
love that.
which
Mm-hmm.
is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked so much in high
Mm-hmm.
tech that it just tends to
Mm-hmm.
I have a daughter
Mm-hmm.
who's a mechanical engineer, so
Mm-hmm.
she's kind of
Mm-hmm.
breaking the chain. But
Mm-hmm.
it tends to be a lot of men,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
historically.
Right.
But is really learning how to do that outreach. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell people, look, when you're doing that outreach and letting people know this is what I do,
Mm-hmm.
people need you. You
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
owe it to the world
Mm-hmm.
to get your talents
Right.
out there, because how many times have you been sitting there thinking, in the days when we worked corporate, thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I have this project, yet another project was slung my way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'm going to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have the right people on my
Mm-hmm.
team. I could do it, but I don't have the
Mm-hmm.
bandwidth. Imagine if an email or an outreach
Mm-hmm.
came across your desk and you think, oh,
Yes.
Deb,
Mm-hmm.
Deb, I worked with Deb 15 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. She would be perfect for
Mm-hmm.
this. You are not imposing or bothering
Right.
them.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you really are a
Mm-hmm.
dream come
Mm-hmm.
true.
Right.
And you really need to look at it that
Mm-hmm.
way, because that's what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. So it's
Right.
kind of, I'm not at all a mindset coach,
Mm-hmm.
but there really is kind of a
Mm-hmm.
mindset
Mm-hmm.
twist in realizing that. And
Mm-hmm.
when I work with my people, we start with just like a very small chunk of outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And once it's so hard to get started,
Mm-hmm.
and one of my superpowers is figuring out how to clear roadblocks for people.
Okay.
Whether it's a huge
Mm-hmm.
corporation, like what are the things that we just need to do to
Mm-hmm.
get this project back on
Mm-hmm.
track? And it can be just really small,
Mm-hmm.
simple things, but I have a superpower ability to clear those blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So when I work with the individuals in my programs, it's the same kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So there's some people I say, okay, we want to reach out to
Mm-hmm.
100 people. To some people, they're like, okay, that's fine. I have 800 LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
contacts. Some people are just paralyzed by that. So I'll just
Right.
say, okay, look, just one.
Mm-hmm.
Between now and when we all
Mm-hmm.
meet next week, I just want you to reach out to one
Mm-hmm.
person,
Right.
somebody safe, someone
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mm-hmm.
know, because every step that you take, the next step gets easier and
Mm-hmm.
easier and
Mm-hmm.
easier until it really turns into like a finely tuned
Right.
machine
Mm-hmm.
that just kind of runs
Mm-hmm.
itself. But it takes that work to get
Mm-hmm.
it going. Really, your sales engine
Mm-hmm.
is a thing. And again, I'm sure that in your business, it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing.
Right.
You've had to learn how to
Mm-hmm.
do that outreach to keep your
Mm-hmm.
pipeline full. So that's one
Right.
of the hardest parts.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest fears that people have is how am I going to find that client? Now I was really lucky. I was like you. The company I worked for was going through some big downsizing, and I was the head of the department. And they said if I were to go, they would keep my employees. And I thought,
Oh,
okay, I'm good with that because had other plans and things. Did that happen? No. I mean, they had to,
oh, of course.
um but when I started my business, I realized, okay, that company had laid off this person and that person and this person. Those projects still needed done, and hello, I could do them. So I was so lucky because I went back to my that employer and said, okay, I'll come back and do these things. Now here's the weird thing. I had been gone for 6 months, maybe even longer than that. They hadn't even cleaned off my desk. My pencil was still sitting there. It was the weirdest thing. And people would come by and look. And they're like, okay, she's too old to have been out on maternity leave. But and yeah, it was just very strange because they hadn't needed the space. And so they just had never done it. And they
How
they assigned
interesting.
me back to my thing. But
Oh my gosh.
that's usually not going to happen. So one of the things that we talk about a lot on this program is you have to find your niche. You are not going to serve everybody because there's just no way you can do that. No company tries to serve everybody. I mean, even if you're looking at Amazon, Walmart, Starbucks, no, they don't serve everybody. They know who they need to market to. So that's, to me, is one of the very first things somebody needs to figure out. And maybe it's a specific industry, maybe it's I'm going to provide marketing, whatever it is, but you got to figure that out as one of your first things.
Absolutely. So I want to just sort of demystify and
Okay.
dig into a few of the nuts and bolts, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
There are four key things that you need to start your own
Okay.
consulting business: business experience,
Mm-hmm.
brain power, computer, phone.
Mm-hmm. And you did
Does it
not say
sound
website.
does it sound hard?
No, we've all got those things. They're sitting
Even
right here in front of us. Mm-hmm.
even our teenagers have those things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has
Mm-hmm.
what it takes.
Right.
So right now, everyone who's
Mm-hmm.
listening,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, I'm totally
Mm-hmm.
confident, everyone who's listening to us
Mm-hmm.
right now has what it
Mm-hmm.
takes. And I'm serious.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I hope you won't be insulted by the website.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a website to
No,
put your first check in the bank.
no.
You
And
don't.
I think that's the thing that so many people get so concerned about is they think I have to have this, I have to this, I have to this, I have to do this. No, you've got now, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we would have said a Rolodex, you know, um,
Yes.
but you have those contacts. So there's your
Yes.
phone, you've got your computer,
Yeah.
and you're smart, you know.
And when I first got started, now I've just told you, I started companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was
Mm-hmm.
third employee, I was
Right.
second in
Mm-hmm.
command,
Mm-hmm.
I was fundraising,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd
Mm-hmm.
never started a consulting business solo.
Right.
And I thought, I know there's like stuff I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea, is it a big mountain
Mm-hmm.
or a little hill?
Right.
So I want to tell everybody right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very small
Mm-hmm.
hill. And it's the old, you can build what is it? You can put the wings on the airplane while
Mm-hmm.
you're flying it, or
Right.
so
Mm-hmm.
like build the airplane while you're
Mm-hmm.
flying it. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, that's silly, but you
Mm-hmm.
can you can my whole focus of my
Mm-hmm.
program is land a project,
Mm-hmm.
get a check in the bank.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's your
Mm-hmm.
sole and
Mm-hmm.
only focus,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the other stuff.
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
you need a website someday? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need corporate structure someday?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need a logo and
Right.
photos and all?
But that can come
Yes.
further down.
Land
Mm-hmm.
a project,
Mm-hmm.
get a check in the
Mm-hmm.
bank. So I have put together what I call 3 action steps to generate revenue now.
Okay.
It's a very simple formula,
Mm-hmm.
and it's quick and easy, so I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
review it now. But just in case I don't forget,
Mm-hmm.
on my website
Mm-hmm.
at Billable at the Beach,
Mm-hmm.
it'll pop up at you. There's a free email course
Yes. We'll
that
put that
will
in the show notes. Mm-hmm.
which will walk you through. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go over it sort of
Mm-hmm.
briefly. And you already said one of the important things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear me talk about it, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to, oh, yeah, I just told you guys you have to do that because
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly what
Mm-hmm.
you said. Um, so step one is to put together your value proposition,
Mm-hmm.
which is exactly what you said.
Yeah. What
It's
the heck are you going to be doing?
Exactly. It's a
Mm-hmm.
fancy business school term
Mm-hmm.
for it's your elevator
Mm-hmm.
pitch, it's your offering.
Mm-hmm.
It's the goods and services that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to sell.
Right.
As consultants, we sell services,
Mm-hmm.
not products that you put in a
Yes. Mm-hmm.
warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about niche. So I love
Mm-hmm.
that your audience is already warmed up about
Mm-hmm.
niche. The more focused you can be,
Mm-hmm.
the better.
Right.
It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that you can't do all the things that
Mm-hmm.
you're good at,
Right.
but pick a focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some tips in the
Mm-hmm.
course to help you
Mm-hmm.
pick what that focus should
Mm-hmm.
be. And you can change it. This is your business.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you start down one path, it's going to evolve along the
Mm-hmm.
way based on what you like
Mm-hmm.
doing
Mm-hmm.
and what the market will pay
Mm-hmm.
for. And we're always looking to kind of maximize, what do you really like doing? What are
Mm-hmm.
you good at? And what will
Mm-hmm.
the market pay the
Mm-hmm.
most for?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're looking, and I'm operating this billable at the beach under the concept that you are trying to make money,
Mm-hmm.
that you were quite possibly a six-figure person,
Right.
and that
Mm-hmm.
you need to replace
Yeah,
that
you need to
income.
replace that income. And you actually need to replace it with more because you were getting benefits, all of those various things. So keep that in
Right.
mind when you're looking at this, folks.
Which is roughly 40%.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you do.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably won't have time today to get into pricing,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a whole nuance there. I
Mm-hmm.
will say one thing, be sure to charge what you're worth. And
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'll mention on my website now, and I know that you'll list the kind
Mm-hmm.
of top link in the
Mm-hmm.
course in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of free resources
Mm-hmm.
and articles.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is that any of the questions
Mm-hmm.
that come up would be
Right.
answered. But back to the three action
Mm-hmm.
steps. So the first is your value proposition,
Mm-hmm.
goods and services, what's your pitch?
Mm-hmm.
The second is make your list.
Mm-hmm.
Make your list of people that you're going to reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
This is everyone that you've worked with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you sat next to them 25 years
Right.
ago
Mm-hmm.
at a Hewlett Packard
Mm-hmm.
or Procter and
Mm-hmm.
Gamble or
And you've
General
got their
Foods
dusty
or
little business card sitting somewhere.
well, and if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have the business card
Mm-hmm.
anymore, which I still do have some,
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is a
LinkedIn.
great
Yep.
place to
Mm-hmm.
find people. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not there already, it's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go in, I'm a technology person,
Mm-hmm.
so you could go in and search on
Mm-hmm.
Apple
Mm-hmm.
or Hewlett
Right.
Packard or General
Mm-hmm.
Foods, and it will bring up, and you'll think, oh my gosh, I used to
Mm-hmm.
sit next to him
Mm-hmm.
in the cubicle,
Mm-hmm.
or I remember being on a
Mm-hmm.
team. Here's the thing. Everybody does good
Mm-hmm.
work. These
Right.
people know you and they know you do good
Mm-hmm.
work. All the people that you've worked
Mm-hmm.
with in the past, all of your business
Mm-hmm.
colleagues. And then don't underestimate family,
Mm-hmm.
friends,
Right.
neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
I have a funny car
Mm-hmm.
mechanic story. So a guy in one of my speaking engagements I was talking about this. He goes, "And your car mechanic?" And I'm like, "Car mechanic?" Like, and
Mm-hmm.
so he said, "I drive Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
My dad drove Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
All my siblings drive. There's certain families,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a Honda
Right.
family.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah.
just so easy to
Mm-hmm.
buy Hondas.
Mm-hmm.
We're too cheap to buy Mercedes,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of easy. We have a
Mm-hmm.
sales guy. We just keep
Mm-hmm.
going to him. They're
Yep.
reliable."
Mm-hmm.
So he said, I was in there. I'd been laid off. I just needed new
Mm-hmm.
windshield wipers. We've been going to him for years. So I was
Mm-hmm.
chatting and I happened to mention I was laid off. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, Joe, why didn't you tell me?" And he said, "I'm thinking, well, you're a
Because you're
car
my
mechanic."
mechanic. Yeah.
He said, "I work on Mercedes. Who do you think my
Who do you think?
customers are?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know all your kids. I
Mm-hmm.
know where they're going to college. I
Mm-hmm.
know where you work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, all right, I'm a business person. I know
Mm-hmm.
that for all my other clients.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I might be able to
Yep. A little
put a couple of
matchmaking.
people together?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I thought, whoa,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
really good
Mm-hmm.
story.
Mm-hmm.
So don't underestimate.
Well, and
I,
alumni also.
alumni,
I am very involved in the Alumni Association for the University of Colorado. And it's one of those things where they don't even have to know you. All you have to do is say, "Hey, fellow, Buff fan, like I said, University of Colorado, you went there and I went in
right?
and alumni love to help other alumni. There's
Yes.
just something about that."
So, yeah, so you make your list,
Mhm.
and I say make at least 100 people.
Okay.
I'm a technical person, so I
Hmm.
attract a lot of people who really are introverted
Hmm.
engineers.
Hmm.
Even my most introverted engineers, with some
Hmm.
prompting,
They
could
could
come
come
up
up
with
with
at
it.
least 100
Yep.
people.
Hmm.
And then you're going to do your outreach.
Hmm.
So you are going to send an email to each of these
Hmm.
persons because it's sort of a quick and dirty way to do it.
Hmm.
Okay, now I'm not talking about one email with 100 people in the
Yes. No, no,
BCC
no,
line.
no, no. Mm-mm.
It's one by one.
Hmm.
Someday
Hmm.
you will use an email marketing
Hmm.
service.
Right.
Right now,
Hmm.
you don't need to. You
Right.
make a little
Hmm.
boilerplate
Hmm.
pitch.
Hmm.
You sit down a
Hmm.
couple times a day next to the ski
Hmm.
slope, out by the
Hmm.
pool, in front of what
Hmm.
sports are being played right now, in front of
Yeah.
whatever it
Well,
is.
yeah, we're done with
Okay.
football and baseball
Uh,
hasn't quite started, but
so we're
yeah.
a little in between, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
March Madness is coming
That's
soon.
it. Yep.
But you just do 10.
Hmm.
You do 10. You do
Right.
10. Within a week,
Hmm.
you can do a one by one outreach.
Hmm.
And then each one, you take like the best people,
Hmm.
sort of like your
Hmm.
A's, the people
Hmm.
who are most likely to
Right.
need you
Yeah.
sooner.
Remember
And
that
you
you exist. Hmm.
exactly, and
Hmm.
personalize it a
Hmm.
little bit. Like, how's the new
Hmm.
puppy?
Hmm.
What college did Susie
Hmm.
go to? How's the new
Hmm.
house? How was the European
Right.
vacation? Just a
Hmm.
little like personal
Hmm.
touch base. And make sure, and what you're looking for, selling at the end of the day is a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
You are looking for somebody automatically. These people are people who know you
Mm-hmm.
and they know you do good work
Mm-hmm.
because all of us do good work.
Mm-hmm.
They also need to have a project that's appropriate for your
Mm-hmm.
skills
Right.
and the budget to pay
Mm-hmm.
for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have taught these three steps tens of
Mm-hmm.
thousands of
Mm-hmm.
times through my email course,
Mm-hmm.
live speaking. I've been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And this made the foundation of my consulting business
Mm-hmm.
outreach for
Mm-hmm.
years,
Right.
many
Right.
years.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the 100 outreach, odds are you will get 3 to 5 people
Mm-hmm.
who come back and they say, "Hey, you know what, Deb?
Mm-hmm.
I think I might need a website.
Right.
I think I might
Mm-hmm.
need some
Mm-hmm.
PR. We have this
Mm-hmm.
particular thing. You have some
Mm-hmm.
expertise. Can you help
Mm-hmm.
us with this
Mm-hmm.
campaign?" Out of those 3 to 5 hot leads,
Mm-hmm.
odds are you will close one or two of them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So this really is hot lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just given you three very simple
Mm-hmm.
steps to get started.
Right.
And
With
I
just
have
your phone and your computer.
4 things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Brain power, business experience, phone, computer,
Mm-hmm.
no website,
Mm-hmm.
no nothing,
Right.
land a project, get a check in
Mm-hmm.
the bank, hot lead
Mm-hmm.
generation. And I have seen a lot of people who, from when they
Mm-hmm.
started it, were actually
Mm-hmm.
putting a check in the bank within a few weeks
Mm-hmm. Right.
because these are people that already know
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not going to hold you over
No,
forever, but
but
it's how
it's
you got it's how
right.
you got
Mm-hmm.
started too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
With
Yeah.
people who know
Mm-hmm.
you.
Right.
So
And
it's pretty easy.
right. And I think one of the biggest problems is people think whatever they're doing has to be perfect before they're
Oh,
going to offer it, right? No. Let's be honest, it's never perfect, ever. You and so if you're waiting for perfection, you're going to die.
totally. So in my little the value
Mm-hmm.
proposition is the hardest
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hit on 80% is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Don't agonize. Get
Right.
something down on paper, go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just
Mm-hmm.
listening to your last episode, Deb, about
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT
Right.
and artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So I have just started playing with it
Mm-hmm.
since the first of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't even incorporated it into my materials
Mm-hmm.
yet, but I'm
Oh, it's
realizing.
going to be wonderful. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
just sling some stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Take a piece from your
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn profile,
Mm-hmm.
from your resume, put
Mm-hmm.
a couple experience
Mm-hmm.
and say, Chat GPT,
Mm-hmm.
write me an elevator
Mm-hmm.
pitch, write me a
Right.
value
Mm-hmm.
proposition. It's not going to be
Mm-hmm.
perfect, but for me, I'm very intimidated by a
Mm-hmm.
blank page.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I
So
need
this gets you
something.
started. Mm-hmm.
And so this is the first time I'm
Mm-hmm.
recommending it because I've been
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to
Right.
incorporate it into my
Mm-hmm.
record a little video or
Mm-hmm.
something about
Mm-hmm.
it. So actually oh my gosh,
I know
sorry, I
they
can't
need to
speak today.
change that.
Chat GPT.
Mm-hmm.
And I used it the other day. Someone wanted a LinkedIn recommendation
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to do the best job.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a few strung together
Mm-hmm.
bits about the person,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked it to write me a LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
recommendation. And then I said, and then I wrote back, and I loved how you talked about using good manners. I
Mm-hmm.
had
Oh
heard that
yes.
from somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
and I do that too
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
chatty. And I said, make it a little shorter and a little punchier.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved what
Mm-hmm.
it gave me.
Yeah.
And it took what would have taken
Mm-hmm.
me like all night
Right.
agonizing
Mm-hmm.
and gave me something.
Mm-hmm.
So no,
Mm-hmm.
I am not a perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a daughter who's a
Mm-hmm.
perfectionist and they exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, it's a really hard thing to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
Mm-hmm.
80% is good enough.
Right.
Perfection really is your
Mm-hmm.
enemy.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you need to be using those tools that are out there.
Yeah.
Partially because you need to be showing that you can.
Yeah, that's a good
All of
point.
all of my February programs focused on AI, and of course, the big question is, it's going to take my job, maybe, but it still needs a person who is smart enough to be doing it. And and so that's part of, and you might even tell people later on, hey, you developed some of your materials using Chat GPT, or whatever else you're going to use, because that's it. It is just another tool that we should be learning how to use.
Absolutely. So so those three simple steps,
Mm-hmm.
put together what you do,
Mm-hmm.
make your list, at
Mm-hmm.
least 100 people,
Mm-hmm.
and do the outreach.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then if you want to and you
Mm-hmm.
have time, you're not so busy actually doing
Mm-hmm.
billable work,
Mm-hmm.
then start making some phone
Mm-hmm.
calls, start having some
Mm-hmm.
lunches,
Mm-hmm.
start doing some, I didn't used to talk about also virtual coffee
Mm-hmm.
meetings
Mm-hmm.
before COVID.
Right.
Most people
Mm-hmm.
weren't there yet,
Mm-hmm.
but now I think all of us
Mm-hmm.
have, beyond just Zoom
Right.
meetings, have
Well,
had
yeah.
Zoom
Hmm.
coffee chats,
Especially because, if it's highly likely what you're doing, you don't need to be in the same physical location. You can be around the world.
Totally.
And
Yes.
so, but yeah, I did a thing and I stopped doing it, and I assume it's still working, a thing called Lunch Club. And it was kind of like a dating service for professionals, right? It would match you up based on your business. And
Yeah.
originally it was a Silicon Valley thing
Oh,
where
cool.
you actually were having lunch with people, and but it was
Yeah.
totally business, all of those things. Um, and yeah, and it's an hour, like if you were having lunch, and it was very interesting because it was people. I mean, I did several a week for it's all during COVID, because that was, we stopped going to things. And only once did I connect with somebody who I kind of remotely knew. So these were all new contacts. Did they lead to anything? But part of this, though, especially as you're starting out, is you need the practice of giving that elevator pitch
Yes.
and all of those things. And so, okay, do it on something like Lunch Club or, all those various things. I tell people, Kiwanis, those are good places too.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky here in Atlanta. And I think it's because Atlanta is so big.
Yeah.
We obviously have the chambers of commerce, but then like the last chamber of commerce that I went to, there were 700 people there, and that was lunch. I didn't even talk to everybody at my table.
Yeah.
But we have what's known as business associations. So they're regional, so we've got West Cobb, South Cobb, Marietta, things like that. Under $100 a year to join. They've got multiple activities every month. So it's a great place for people to go to. And so I encourage people, look and see what you've got in your areas. Because as much as we like online, you and I are probably 3,000 miles apart right now, at
Yeah.
least
I'm in San
two,
Diego.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Three, I think. We're on
Um,
opposite coasts.
yes, and there's still something about meeting someone in person.
Yeah. I agree.
And what I love that you're talking about is quite often it's not that person, but it's who that person knows.
Well, and
And
so with those 100
mhm,
emails that you're going to send
mhm,
out, your outreach really is three to
mhm,
500, exactly the
right.
point that you're
Mhm,
saying,
mhm,
because a lot of times it will be, how often has somebody come to you and
mhm.
said, hey, do you know
Looking for.
anybody who
Mhm,
does
mhm,
blah, blah?
right.
And it's not something
Mhm,
you do, but you think,
mhm,
okay, who do
mhm,
I
right.
know? And you can just pass that right
Mhm,
along.
mhm,
So these three action
mhm,
steps, this outreach,
mhm,
I did this. At this point, I'm completely focused on Billable
mhm,
at the Beach. I'm not doing
right.
hands-on consulting
Mhm,
anymore.
mhm,
But for 15 years,
mhm,
once a quarter,
mhm,
not a fancy email,
mhm,
not a newsletter, not all
right.
kinds
People
of
don't
cool
care about
content.
that. Mhm,
In Billable at the Beach now, I have all kinds of cool
yes.
content. But
Mhm,
in that, it
mhm,
really was just reminding people, hey,
mhm,
remember I'm
mhm,
here and what I
mhm,
do, because then they could
mhm.
refer. And
Do you
so
ask them for
often,
that? Do you say,
yes,
hey, if you know someone, please pass this on?
yes,
I love that because I think so many times people think that they need permission to do that. So give them
yes,
permission to
no.
start with.
Yeah. And in my little email course, I have like a little template that people,
Hmm.
and that's one of the things. Do you or anyone you
Hmm.
know have a project that I
Hmm.
could work on?
Right.
Be clear
Hmm.
while you're doing the
Hmm.
outreach. Be
Hmm.
clear that you're
Hmm.
looking for consulting
Right.
projects.
Right.
Don't just say, "Hey, this is about
Hmm.
and do you or anyone you know?"
Hmm.
And when you are having those meetings
Hmm.
and you're networking and you're meeting with somebody,
Hmm.
don't be afraid to go out
Hmm.
and ask, "Hey, who else
Mhm.
should I meet?
Right.
Who
Or maybe
else that
it's the
we
person in
know?
line behind you at the grocery store
Well, and I loved
or
what you
your car
said about
mechanic.
totally. I love what you said
Mhm,
about lunch club
mhm,
because in my early days, I'm a bit of an interesting person because I'm an engineer, but I
mhm,
also have always done a lot of performing
mhm.
arts.
So you are an
So,
introverted extrovert or an
well,
extroverted introvert?
I'm not sure, one of the two, but
Mhm,
I'm I'm a performer. That's
mhm,
totally fine.
mhm,
So if someone's given me the stage,
mhm,
I can get
mhm.
on stage in front of
Right.
10,000
Mhm,
people and not break a sweat.
mhm.
But put me in a networking
Oh
meeting
yeah. Mhm,
where I don't have the
mhm,
stage, where there's all
mhm,
those little clusters of
mhm,
people, and it's really hard.
mhm,
So finding some lunch club
mhm,
or like a
mhm,
speed dating
mhm,
only networking
mhm.
equivalent
Right.
where it
Mhm,
automatically pairs you with
mhm,
somebody, or there's a
mhm,
group that I did. It was called ExecuNet,
mhm,
and it the format was there would be 15
mhm,
people, and everybody we went around the room at the beginning of the
mhm,
meeting, and
mhm,
everybody did their pitch
mhm.
or their
Right.
intro or whatever.
Mhm,
So it was really good
mhm,
practice, and everyone was kind of say
mhm,
in the same boat. So find some kind of like
mhm,
safe
mhm.
places.
Right.
And then there are tricks. And so
Mhm,
again, on my website, I have videos that
mhm,
give tricks about how do you figure out
mhm,
networking and what are
mhm,
things like I this one friend told me, get in the coffee line over and over because when you're in the coffee line, there's a person ahead of you and a person
mhm,
behind you, and you can strike up a
mhm,
conversation while you're waiting.
mhm,
Or volunteer to work the desk when everyone comes in that
mhm.
has the badges
Yep.
because then you have a job.
Mhm,
So those are little, or
mhm,
take a wingman,
mhm,
right? Take
mhm.
somebody with you.
Right. Now, don't
Don't
just
only talk
only
to them.
talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah. We're thinking the same thing
Mhm,
here.
mhm,
But like to get a little
mhm,
warm up,
mhm,
like you might have done at a high school
mhm.
dance. Like
Right.
you
Mhm,
never walked into a high
right.
school dance by
Mhm.
yourself, did you?
No.
Oh, do they still
And
have high
maybe
school
it's
dances?
to say, hey Bob, I need to introduce you to Amy.
Yeah.
And and then and so you just kind of keep going around that way
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
walking up and going, hi, my name is, and
Yeah.
God bless the people that get up at things and have their 30-second spiel written down.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'd rather that they fumble and bumble through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love having, somebody there to kind of help break that ice.
Yeah.
And preferably it's somebody who knows a lot of those people, or maybe a lot of people because, this is good to do for other people too.
And so I started doing this in San Diego in my area.
Mm-hmm,
And after a few years of kind of toughing it out, and
mm-hmm,
I'm sorry if a few years seems long, it's not that long for me these days.
mm-hmm,
But it got so, and at this point it's still true, it really doesn't matter. Any event that I go
mm-hmm,
to, I'm going to know at least a few people
mm-hmm. Right.
because
Because
I've been out there
yeah,
enough.
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it gets easier that
Hmm.
way.
Right. And so then you can go and you can talk to them first.
Yeah.
And now it's funny. I stopped going to networking events and I used to go to several a week, and then COVID hit. And
Yes.
my health said, no, you're not going back out.
Mm.
You need to stay in. And it was funny because Georgia opened things up really pretty early.
Uh,
Where if you were going to be outside, I mean, they opened it up like in May, and of course it's Georgia, so
yeah.
we could easily do that. But
Yeah.
I didn't, and so I didn't go to in-person networking events for several years, and so it's new to me. I mean, I walk and I don't know a soul. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I went back to a couple early in last fall, and it was like I know nobody here. But that's okay. And but and I think one of the things to remember too is, I mean, clearly I am an extrovert. I can talk to a post, but sometimes I walk in and go, okay, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
So then you find a person that
Yeah.
smiled at you, right? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But don't just go hide in the corner. Find the other person who's hidden in the corner and talk to them.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can figure out how to do it.
Right, right. And again, it's wherever it is. Maybe it's your after church social. all of those
Yeah.
various things, your kid's softball team, the parents are
Yeah.
sitting there. Well, you got to talk about something when you're sitting
Yeah.
there for hours and hours and
No, it's
hours.
true.
Mhm,
Everyone can figure out networking. And
mhm,
then the outreach, starting by email,
mhm,
that that's a little bit
mhm,
easier.
mhm.
And that gets you started. And
Right.
then start
Mhm,
reaching out.
mhm,
Also, I am totally comfortable one-on-one or
mhm,
performing.
mhm,
So I started out doing some practicing in the sort of speed dating
mhm,
equivalents
mhm,
and
mhm,
then doing more one-on-one
mhm,
sessions.
mhm,
And whether they're in person or coffee chats,
mhm,
but you'll be surprised. People
mhm.
really like to help.
Right. Right.
People like to help
Mhm,
you. And if you
mhm,
just reach out and say, hey,
mhm,
I'm starting this
mhm,
thing, and I even recommend
mhm,
in my email course about developing the value proposition,
mhm,
reach out to 3 to 5
mhm,
of your colleagues who can
mhm,
kind of be customer proxies
mhm.
and get their feedback. Say, look,
Right.
I'm trying to do
Mhm.
this.
What do you
If you
think
were to
about it?
buy
Mhm,
this, what do you think?
mhm, mhm.
Get some feedback.
Right. Mhm,
And people will jump on
mhm,
the phone or
mhm,
Zoom, and I've
mhm,
gotten used to Zoom, but somebody who dreads it, they could jump on the phone
mhm.
and just
Right.
have a little chat with
Mhm.
you.
Right.
And then sometimes had that happen, that I've done that outreach, not really meaning for it to be a sales
Mhm.
call, but then the
Right.
other person says, you know what?
Mhm.
Like I have this
Yeah.
thing,
Mhm. Mhm.
I might actually, and then it
Mhm.
actually goes somewhere,
Mhm.
or they're at the gym the
Right.
next day and
Mhm.
somebody asked them.
Mhm.
So once you kind of get
Mhm.
that momentum going,
Mhm.
I like to say, never let a day go by
Mhm.
without doing
Mhm.
something
Right.
toward networking,
Mhm.
marketing, business
Mhm.
development.
Right.
It can be really
Mhm.
small. And I wasn't very good about doing that in the early days. And
Mhm.
I'm a person who has light bulb moments. And
Mhm.
I was having lunch with this friend of mine who's a really good marketing person.
Mhm.
And she said, well, what are you doing for your outreach? Because I had all these projects that just fell
Mhm.
into my lap
Mhm.
magically at
Right.
first. And then that dried up.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, and
Mhm.
I even have been a marketing
Mhm.
professional. She said, look, Amy, can you just spend an hour a day?
Mhm.
And I said,
Mhm.
well, I go to the gym an hour a day. Yeah,
Right. Mhm.
anyone can spend an hour a day.
Mhm.
Is that all I have to do?
Mhm.
She's like, yeah,
Mhm.
just an hour a day.
Right.
Just do
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
Do something. Don't get overwhelmed by
Right.
this big long list.
Yeah.
Just do
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
And it's back to,
Mhm.
again, land a
Mhm.
project, get a check in the
Mhm.
bank.
Right.
That's your
Yeah.
focus.
And keep an open mind as you're doing all of this. I am a member of the National Beagle Club of America, the dogs, right? And and so we do these dog shows. We get together several times a year. We do these dog shows, but we talk dogs. That's all we talk about. And and I when I've actually found out what some people do in the real world, as we put it, it's like, oh my God, I should have been talking to this person for years. And so then I
Yeah,
reach out to them and I'm like, okay,
right.
and then the other thing, and I started doing this and I've stopped doing it. I need to do it again. You're reminding me to do this. I would pick 5 people a week, so one a day, from LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, and send them an email and say, oh my gosh, Amy, it has been so long since we chatted. Now it's got to be somebody that I kind of know, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say, it's been so long since we chatted. I would love to catch up to find out what is going on in your world. Not hello, I'm going to talk about myself. Um,
Yeah.
and I never had anybody turn me down.
Right?
You know, and
Right? Say that
yeah,
again.
I
You
never
never
had,
had anyone
yeah,
turn you down.
and I made it easy for them. I sent them my calendar link on my, so that they could just book a quick little Zoom. A couple of times I got together with people in person, but yeah, and it was just, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while, and like you said, personalize it. I saw that you went on this fabulous vacation to wherever. Would love to know more about it, and what have you been up to? Because people like to talk about themselves,
Of course they do.
and and even if they tell you no, well, okay, they told you no. The world didn't stop.
And like you said, nobody did. That's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so many things that if you just have the confidence to
Right.
do
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing where you
Mm-hmm.
can get, as long as you go
Mm-hmm.
into it being
Mm-hmm.
kind and
Right.
thoughtful
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
respectful
Mm-hmm.
and with good
Right.
intentions.
Right. And how can you help them? I mean, that's always kind of my premise is, how can I help them? Um,
Yeah.
And so yeah, maybe it's who can I introduce you to? Maybe it's somebody that's retired and I know a great place that they could volunteer for. I mean, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
No, it's true. And one of the things as a consultant, as you build all these connections, and
Hmm.
I know you do this
Hmm.
too, is if you can kind of be a
Hmm.
clearinghouse, a resource
Hmm.
for where people to
Hmm.
go if they need
Right.
a
Hmm.
this or a that
Hmm.
or a, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
like I have the woman behind me is a real estate agent in our
Hmm.
neighborhood. So it's kind of like her job to know who's the
Right.
best plumber and
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
yard person. So
Hmm.
she's kind of like intentionally made
Yeah.
herself the
Hmm.
clearinghouse for
Hmm.
those resources.
Hmm.
So I want to do the same thing
Right.
kind of in my
Hmm.
area. So
Hmm.
I give them reason to
Hmm.
reach out to me
Right.
by really
Hmm.
helping and
Hmm.
adding
Right.
value.
And then when they need you to do what you do, you're top of mind.
Exactly. Those touch
Hmm.
points.
Hmm. Right. Well, oh my gosh, Amy, this is it, we have to have you on again because I think this is so valuable, especially because, we were talking about this before the program. There's been a lot of people who have their jobs have changed status, right? Um, and, but, or whether it was, maybe still people from COVID, all those things who are thinking, I want to do this. I don't want to go back into corporate America. I don't want to go back to working for the government. But I still want to be a valuable contributor to society. And so I think consulting is obviously the best place for that. So we will have you on again. But
That
tell
would be
us,
great.
how do people find you and what are the services you provide? Remind us about that.
Sure. So, Billable at the Beach is the name of the business. So I have a billableatthebeach.com. Social media wise, it's really just LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Facebook page, but my main, since it's sort of a corporate-ish thing, mostly LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm there. I have tons of free resources. I mentioned the free email
Mm-hmm.
course. I have a webinar that dives a little bit deeper. We didn't talk about my book, but I do have a
Mm-hmm.
book that's Land a Consulting Project. Put a check in, Land a Consulting Project now. It's back to that
Mm-hmm.
same idea of
Right. Mm-hmm.
land a
Yeah,
project,
get
put a check in the
one.
bank.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's generate, it's not a
Mm-hmm.
business until you're generating
Mm-hmm.
revenue. Let's get that going
Mm-hmm.
and then all of the other
Yeah, it's
stuff.
a hobby if it's not generating revenue.
Exactly. I said you took the words right out of my mouth. I say that all the time. So that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
If you do come onto my email
Mm-hmm.
list through the free course,
Mm-hmm.
my book is free 5 days out of every
Oh,
90. That's
mm-hmm.
what Amazon allows me to,
Mm-hmm.
the Kindle
Mm-hmm.
version of the
Mm-hmm.
book. So that's there.
Great.
Lots of free
Mm-hmm.
resources. I love to really just be a clearinghouse
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where I can help people.
I love it. I love it. Because that is what it's all about. How can we help others?
How can we
And
serve?
and
Yes.
and the nice thing is then usually good things happen. But if we're only thinking about me, 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 we might get a little ways, but we're not going to get very far in life.
Right. That's for sure.
Well, Amy, like I said, this has been absolutely wonderful, and I will have you on again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I really want people to know that there's nothing special about me. I did this. It's been very successful. I started my own consulting business. If I can do it, you can do it. I promise you. The four things, the three action steps, it's much easier than you think. Just take a step.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having such a fun conversation with Amy Rasdal. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.